Hey, and welcome everyone to In the Hot Seat. For our repeat viewers, thanks for joining us again. For those who are new to the show, every 2 weeks we put industry experts and industry leaders, customers in the hot seat for a lively discussion, debate, and even some discourse as we humanize the digital experience. All aspects of the customer lifecycle are up for discussion, as well as technologies used throughout each phase on the journey. This episode is part of a AI impact series, and we will focus on cybersecurity. But what the hell is cybersecurity? Pete.
Oh, you had to ask me. It's got a lot of different facets to it, which is, there's a lot of new things like, AI being applied to cyber attacks, which is obviously very new, and it's tough enough to keep up with AI, let alone the previous thing we were trying to keep up with was cybersecurity. And so you put these two things together, and that's a real challenge. And but there's all these other things, like insider threats and endpoint security and all these other sort of more traditional aspects of cybersecurity that also we could cover. What do you want to focus on in this session, Thomas?
Well, I'd like to look into how AI-based tool, especially funny things like this hype topic, generative AI, is used or can be used to attack and defend. So is this a thing or isn't it a thing? Does it make only more effective, efficient maybe? Or is it something that, makes things even more dangerous? So, and for that, I mean, we are not exactly the right ones, but that's why we have experts.
The right guy is Pete Herzog. He's our guest today.
Yeah.
Pete is a lifelong hacker who uses his powers for good and not evil, thankfully, for us. He's the managing director and co-founder of the Institute for Security and Open Methodologies, which is a nonprofit organization researching and creating new solutions to complex security problems. He started that about 23 years ago. He also is the co-founder of 3 different companies, Irvin AI, Mute, and Invisibles. So I'm looking forward to bringing. Oh, there he is. Hey,
welcome.
Pete.
There he is.
Hey.
So let me get
Speak
rid
of the
of these
devil.
glasses so that I can actually see you.
I'll try not to disappoint.
So did you catch our sort of focus for this conversation, Pete?
I did. It's very, very straight and narrow, and yes, it's. I'm sure we could probably just finish that up in just 2 minutes, right? It's such a small topic.
Feel free to talk a little longer. But really, cybersecurity was a topic. Well, is a topic since basically there's cyber, and there are varieties of different attack forms. The most notorious one probably distributed denial of service or something. What do you see most?
What do we see most?
What's most common?
Phishing, social engineering, fraud. Things against humans, less so than machines. Basically, the internet, you can look at it as somebody designed and created a system so somebody could steal from you from really, really far away. That's really what it's come down to. Now, I think cyber is kind of funny that we call it cyber now, and I know there was a huge resistance back in the mid 2000s to anything being called cyber because people don't like change. But I think it's interesting because as more and more of our lives end up online, like so much of us, even our DNA, which just got stolen from a lot of people, that because our lives are online, it's such a blurred line between humanity, which the attacks are being fraud and social engineering and phishing, catfishing, all this kind of stuff against humans, which is done then online over networks, so that it's no longer about network security. It's really about people stealing from people like it's always been. And that's why it's an incredibly complicated subject. So when people say cyber is really about living online.
When you're saying people steal from people, I mean, if I look at my accounts, there's only that much there. Got 3 daughters, so basically there's nothing. So isn't it far more profitable to target companies via people?
You're kidding? You're kidding? Companies are tough, right? They invest in cybersecurity, sure. What ends up happening is some companies get targeted, usually by nation states. That could happen, right? Then there's these groups, and we don't really know much about who's financing them or if they're financing themselves or whatever. But then they might go after companies. You know, you have your Sony, you have your MGM now. You have these company attacks, either from nation states or groups. But really, what you have is just like you do in business. You have many more. What is it, like 90% or 95% are small, medium businesses, and then the rest are corporations, big companies. And I think you have the same thing. You have a very small percentage of these big attackers who invest in special 0-day or unique attacks on unknown vulnerabilities, and versus your everyday fraudster, whether it's your prince from Nigeria or whatever. But these people are going after regular people because, especially in some of these countries where, making $10 a day makes you rich. If they can nail down a romance scam or some of these computer fixing scams against old people and drain $100 from them, that's huge. But the romance scams, which actually originated, some of the biggest ones, what's it called? The pig slaughtering attacks originated in China, and the Chinese couldn't stop them. And they were run by mafia type gangs, and they enlisted all sorts of people in the way that they sort of force people into prostitution. They also force them into doing these online romance scam things. And they just grow and grow, and it was so bad that the Chinese couldn't stop them, and now they've reached out way beyond the borders, and people are falling for this like crazy. Like we're talking 100,000, 200,000 is being lost.
Okay.
So it's not small stuff, and you can't get this money back because these people wire it to China.
So what you're essentially saying is the same business model as in. Now, just wanted to say real business, and honest
but
business.
But it is real business.
Well, in an honest business.
Registered business, tax.
Registered business.
Let's not say honest either. Registered business.
Registered business where you got mass business as well as targeted low volume, high margin business. So, and what you're basically saying, there are only few low volume gangs. And the vast majority is actually high volume, low margin.
Opportunists. Yeah. So, I mean, that's the thing. Opportunity still wins, whether you're mugging or robbing supermarkets or, it's about opportunity, whereas they're low security, low risk. Plus it's low cost of entry. I mean, you could probably get set up to doing romance scams for probably under $100, and really just, running it weekly probably costs you cents to do it.
Okay.
What do you think the impact, Pete, would be if we were on an equal economic footing with the people trying to do this perpetrating? Is that going to change the game?
I don't think so. I used to think, idealistic me used to think, well, if everybody had a Walmart and they had things they could buy and things they could lose, maybe that would change things. But, I see what's happening in places like California with all the shoplifting going on. And this is a new thing, right? This brazen shoplifting of them just going in. And I don't know the politics behind it or whatever, but I do know it's happening. And there's low consequences. It has nothing again, I don't know enough studies to say this, but I don't think everybody who does it is at the poorest end of the spectrum, because otherwise, why aren't more homeless people doing it? This kind of thing I'm thinking, where people have really nothing to lose. My guess is that economics doesn't really play into it. It's still people doing a job to make money. And I think if you're in a situation where it might even be patriotic for your country, wherever you are, to be picking the pockets of rich Westerners, that might even get you some society points where you live.
So it's like an intramural sport.
So to speak, yes, on a very large scale.
Yeah.
Here we have one of our listeners, viewers, actually he's a repeat offender, actually. So what he refers back to one of your earlier statements that goes into people targeting many people. Or can that be compared to protection schemes like mafia?
I suppose in some aspects, yes, right. This whole the whole pay us and we won't rob you, but I don't see that much happening online. Not like that. I mean, so it's maybe she, I don't know who this person is, but maybe they have now put this out in the universe, into the matrix here, and now maybe that'll be the new big thing, because people hadn't thought about it before they said it. But yeah,
what one often sees is ransom. So first abduct the data and then maybe give it back.
Well, that's more like kidnapping, right? But I mean, what they're talking about is let's encrypt all the data, and we'll let you use it, and you do it, and we'll keep anybody else from stealing it, but you need to pay us weekly, or it's gone.
It's be returned. Maybe a stupid question, but in how far did those perps change their attack vectors and tools that they are using? In how far develops that? Is this kind of like in military domains, an offense versus defense battle that's going on there?
It's hard to say with opportunists. You go out on the dark web and you can buy tools. I mean, there's companies who only sell tools, like the whole Levi Strauss sell dungarees to gold miners, but don't hunt for gold yourself, So they go out and they like researching these things and new vulnerabilities, and they like making tools, but they don't actually want to go through and do the work themselves, because and they do pretty well for themselves. And they have like almost no risk, right? The worst that's going to happen is their website gets shut down and they can't sell this stuff anymore. Unless, of course, they happen to be a Westerner, in which case then the government grabs them because they can't actually grab the real criminals. And then they just make they make an example of them and pat themselves on the back that they have stopped this bad thing, when really just the next person picks it up. They haven't really stopped it at all. There's so many tools out there, and they're really just not hard to make. The thing is, some of them have gotten really complicated. Like you can see, they sat down and they made some serious flowcharts, on if this, then that, like they really have some very complicated malware there that, and processes on how they do these things. I mean, this is just like any business, you have some real innovation, unfortunately. And I have a feeling you want to tie this into AI somehow. I get this feeling as this direction it's going.
Am I that transparent? Oh, well, let's first get with Jody. Oh, well, there we are already. Now we are tied into AI.
Now we're in because of Jody. Yes. Thanks, Jody. Okay. So AI, again, very complicated subject. There's many different kinds of AI, but when we say AI, the general person, I think, thinks of large language models like OpenAI and ChatGPT and Llama and
Most certainly, yeah.
Bard. Those are the main ones. And again, these are good at giving you information that sounds real, like it's thoughtful and factual, but in essence, right, they're created by lots of documents, lots of statements from a lot of people, a lot of times from chat rooms. I wouldn't be surprised if, for example, if Meta uses conversations from WhatsApp and Facebook and things like that, just like OpenAI used Reddit and Wikipedia. And it was just kind of funny because we did a lot of research on OpenAI because we've been working with it now for about 3 or 4 years, I think, and long before it became the thing. And when we were, so you could upload. So for example, we were trying to see if you can catch cheaters who are using it to, so one of the things we were looking, how do you catch cheaters who are writing their homework assignments and stuff using ChatGPT? And so we tried a lot of different techniques, very mathematical techniques, algorithmic stuff. And there's a lot of ideas behind that. But in the end, we're like, since we're using ChatGPT to create the things that we were testing on to see if they could be cheated, one of our developers was just like, why don't we just ask ChatGPT if it wrote it? And so we upload paragraph and we said, did you write this? And it would say yes. If it wrote it, it would know. So I copy a paragraph or two out of Wikipedia, and I would ask it, did you write this? And it would say yes, because it couldn't tell the difference between, because that's what it was trained on, right? Yeah. So I'm kind of, I am getting to a point here, trust me. So, so what we know about these large language models is that they sound really good, but unlike what we actually know about machines and trust about machines, like your calculators, your blood pressure machines, probably your bathroom scale, anything that's a computerized machine, we tend to trust. We think it's got fairly accurate information. And these large language models, they do have accurate information based on what they were trained on. So if it's trained on Facebook, you can expect your answers to be about as worthy as you asking the question in Facebook and getting a lot of responses. And then you take the most popular response, because statistically that's the highest, and you say, okay, this is probably the best response. So accuracy kind of goes out the window then because of how it's trained. Now, it's really good at sounding like you're talking to a person. And of course, if they train it on factual things like they do with programming, for example, they're getting better and better at being able to program this way because they are training it on more and more factual things. It still can't do math. But for example, you wouldn't want to use it to do your math homework. You would want to ask it to break down how to solve your math homework, and then you do the actual math. So in those cases, it's really good. And what I'm getting to is that, can you use this then for bad? Well, the thing is that it is much easier to use it for bad than it is for good, because you have to jump through a lot of hoops to get it to do good things. And you really just have to trick it to make it do bad things or give you bad things. And if you want to build a large language model that's based on doing bad things, you could do that, and it would give you the information you need to do bad things. I mean, that is simplistically true. And now if you use any of the other AI, if you're looking at anything else that deals with relationships and neural networks and things like that, you could probably get even more factual information and even probably come up with patterns that you hadn't thought of before, which allows you to do greater evil if you want. And again, doing that is so if that's one side of the coin, doing the same thing to prevent evil meaning you're using these relationships to find patterns to prevent evil, it's a much smaller scale. So that's the problem, is that you can use these things for doing bad things easier and in larger quantity than you can for stopping those very same bad things.
So basically what you're saying is, first, they trained well enough, they can create incredibly good bad code. Well, malicious code, not bad, malicious code. And second, there are out there plenty.
Yeah, I would say that's true. Now, on the other hand, I absolutely love large language models. I love working with them. I think
Yeah.
I think they can do a lot overall for humanity. And if those AI overlords hear me one day, once they ingest this podcast, they know that I'm, one of the good ones. But just preventing my future here from going bad. But
Trying to keep them.
but yeah, I think I am all for growing out AI, and I think companies should be able to innovate. I wouldn't put the brakes on anyone for any of that reason. The only thing I would do is probably have or force them to have some sort of Nutri-scale that tells you the veracity of the information in there, where it was trained from, where it came from, be like, hey, this has the same quality as your Facebook feed, in truthful information. And then you know what you're getting, I think that is more important than stopping this or trying to prevent it from doing bad things, because every tool can be misused. I don't think it should be stopped just for that reason.
Now, although right with Brent, so damn, that ain't good. Although it's apparently much harder to do good or defend myself against the bad model, what can or should individuals, people on one hand, as well as businesses then on the other?
Can I back up for 1 second before we get to the solution? And just, there's something that is ringing in the back of my head constantly through this conversation, and that was it was a testimony given in Congress about Bitcoin and the underlying blockchain technology, and they were talking about how this sort of can become the currency for bad actors. And it was sort of like easier to use it for that than anything else. And do you know Kevin Mandia? Does that name ring a bell?
No.
So he started a company called Mandiant, and that got bought by FireEye, where he was the CEO.
Okay, I didn't know it was the same. Yes, sorry.
Yeah, same. He's the guy. He was on the cover of Forbes for detecting the port on the switch on the third floor in China in the building where they hack certain military secrets from us. He built this algorithm that traced back to where these things happen, and that was the point he kept making in this. One of the points in this testimony was that it's sure blockchain's got all these potential great advantages, but everybody seems to always focus on the good side of something without regard to how easy it is for this to be flipped and used against you. And in the case of blockchain, the idea is that you couldn't ever detect who these people are. Is that true, or can we now pick it apart and figure out who we are paying our ransomware money to?
So I actually make a pretty decent living finding those people. So it is very possible. We do this for court cases all the time. It's part of what we do in investigations. However, yes, there are ways that you could become untraceable. Now, I think so. There's let's talk what bad is for a second. Okay, so bad, when we say something like cryptocurrency can be used more for bad for who? Bad for you who are using it as a cash, as an online cash, where you want to make a purchase for something, who knows, is embarrassing for you, to some place, and let nobody know or track it online in a database so that they could be like, oh, you're the one who bought, I don't know, infant formula, and whatever your thing is, a furry costume, I don't know, whatever you don't want people to know, and you want to buy this online,
Like
it's going to end up in a database.
Thomas just
and
said
next
you're
time,
getting warmer.
yeah, exactly. Furry fedora, whatever. But you go on there, and then Amazon's going to always suggest, hey, do you want another furry cap, or something like that. And the thing is, if you want to avoid that, if you want your privacy, then you need something that's known as, where in security, we deal with non-repudiation, which means you can't deny an act. But when I do investigation work for law firms, all their clients want full plausible deniability. They want to be able to, they want repudiation. They want privacy. They don't want people to know it was them, whatever it is. And I think good for you is to have that privacy. Bad for the government, though, because you may not be paying taxes on that, which is what they want the money for. So, and it goes back to AI and everything else, blockchain, wherever you go. The thing is, there's a real value to being able to pay cash online without ending up in somebody else's database, which is absolutely out of control. I work with an organization. We do analysis of companies that break privacy because we have this tool called Rift that we deal with, and so this company called datagrade.com. I'm just throwing that out there in case people want to know. And they trace back to all these. When you hear your info may be sold to third parties, well, they trace back where all these third parties are. And again, they've been only running for about 6 months now. And the database they have is just scary huge. And they haven't even cracked the surface. And so what you have here is this problem where making money off of the illusion that you can sell somebody based on their habits, their buying habits, which is all crap, I think, because the number of times that Amazon tries to sell me, light switches when I bought one light switch one time, like I need them all the time. This is absolutely ridiculous. But they sell this data and they think they can track you and that they can identify who you are as a person. And again, this ability has been out there for a long time. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, this is something that I know we can do with something called engrams, where you can the more information that you can find pattern about a person, you can identify them then more specifically. So again, these are things that I know I can do, which means in a limited sense, which means I know big governments could absolutely do this. Big corporations could be doing this. What is it worth? I don't know. But again, bad. I think your privacy is really worth something, and it's gotten so bad that the fact that Facebook, Instagram runs in the background all the time. It's always running. It is listening to you. It's looking for keywords, and that's why when you talk about something and then you're like, oh, look, Instagram's just trying to sell me an ad on this weird thing we just talked about. Everybody knows that's happening. And it's inundating our lives. And what's scary is the fact that, when we teach Hacker High School to teenagers how to protect their privacy, because they're online all the time, is we have to tell them, make many fake accounts for all of your different personalities. You have one with your family, one with your friends, one with your best friend, one with just your girlfriends, one with, you make a lot of fake accounts, you call them different things, and you live different lives, and you screw up their algorithms. And that's the only way that you can actually live with any kind of privacy, is by being as fake as you can online.
So it's like a denial of truth attack.
Yeah, pretty much. So
that one you should patent. You should get a trademark on that one.
Yeah. If only.
The answer to Jody's question basically is no. One can't be really anonymous.
Well, actually, there are people there are people who, yes, you have to work at it. I think people say, can you avoid paying taxes? And there are people who avoid paying taxes, but that becomes their full-time job, right? That's all they do. They're constantly going to court. They're constantly fighting the government. They're constantly protesting. Their job then is to be against paying taxes. Yeah. And I think that's the same thing. If you want to be anonymous online, your whole job revolves around being anonymous. Like that is all you do all the time, and you can't screw up, because when we catch people, it's because of a mistake that they made, something small. And again, it gets even worse, because if you're friends with anybody that you happen to know in real life, with your fake account, because it happens, and they post something about you. I mean, we've caught people who have done that, where that real person wishes the fake account person a happy birthday or something, which lets us know that they know them in real life somehow. And then you go to their feed and you find pictures of that supposedly anonymous person because they went to a concert together, or they did something together, or a backyard barbecue. And then you see that person has a tattoo, and now you start digging in. What tattoo parlor? Where did they go? Like you can actually just start digging in. So again, if you want to be anonymous, you can, but then that's all you do, and that shouldn't be. So it shouldn't be that hard.
Summary is stay offline and pay cash. Yeah.
Even that you can't, right?
Even then, because there's too many cameras around. Yeah.
There's cameras everywhere. There's sensors everywhere. You can't hide.
Okay, which probably leads us back to the solution discussion now. If I am an individual, a business, and there's this malicious person there, so I don't like paying taxes, but that's at least legit. So, what should I do? What could I do as an individual or as a business to sort of mitigate the risk of being maliciously attacked, of being defrauded, of being held ransom, or my data being held ransom by an encryption attack? Or, well, if I'm a journalist, there are plenty of tools that invade my phone.
Okay, so this is a lot of advice you'll get is very, very straightforward. Like keep your data clean, practice good cyber hygiene, use right passwords, big passwords, don't reuse passwords. Like all like little soundbite advice, which is nice. And it kind of reminds me of, when COVID hit and the government's just like, you don't need a mask, just wash your hands, and stay 2 meters away from people. And then they just keep denying it's airborne, and then people are getting sicker and sicker, and what a mess it became, right? And then it turns out, well, we told people not to wear masks because there wasn't enough for the hospitals, and so all this stuff comes out later, and you see this now is that, yes, they give a lot of advice, but they're also selling a lot of products, so they have their reasons for giving this advice. And the problem is that it's been so ingrained into all the areas of education, whether they're training or universities, whatever. Now, a lot of these schools are getting their curriculum materials, their things that they practice on, they're getting them for free from corporations. So they just, they reiterate the same advice again and again. And it's something we say in Hacker High School all the time, which is there's too many parrots, not enough pirates. There's nobody out going for themselves. They're just saying again and again what they hear. And so I would love to say, I could just do this and that and you'll be fine. But the truth is you won't be. You won't be, because the problem is so big, so deep that you can only hope it doesn't hit you. And I work in this sphere long enough that I see small mom and pop shops, supermarkets, just things you wouldn't expect. Get hit by ransomware, have trouble, romance scams, fraud. We have there's a family I know who owned a small engraving shop that got hit by a phishing attack from an insider from a vendor that they used to use, and that vendor, the employees left, and they copied the domain except for one character, and was able to phish and said, no, we changed bank accounts. Please send your invoices, pay the invoices to this account now, blah, blah, blah. And they did, and they lost like 20,000 euros, and which is a lot of money for a small business, so again, I see these things hitting all the time. Of course, the big ones are the ones that make the news, but it's all these small ones everywhere that are getting nailed. And the problem is that as long as we're integrating all of our cyber, our lives, our businesses, and everything into one place, and we're buying all these all-in-one solutions, you can't really segment. You can't really put up walls. I mean, even the ISP, our own ISP, they, for myself, they sell, it's both Wi-Fi and Ethernet all packaged into one, which means if that's true, then every single device in my home as a technophile is all on one network. So I actually have to go through and physically segment, and that way wireless does not mix with wire traffic. And then I have the wire traffic. The office computers don't mix with my kids' computers, and nothing mixes with the phones. And that is effort. And I have to put in effort. And there is no easy solution. There's nothing you can buy. You have to get somebody to actually sit down and do the effort, do the segmentation. You can use some of the commercial products if that makes you feel good, like antivirus and stuff. Although you'd be much better off just running Linux for your work stuff if you can get away with it, and probably avoid a lot of trouble with some of the default installs as opposed to default installs of Windows or even Mac, although Mac's a little bit better. But again, then you're buying into the whole Apple ecosystem. It's complex. There's no easy answer. And it's, I feel like sometimes when people say, well, what can I do to avoid cancer? Like how the doctors must feel, because there's not like the one thing. It's not like I'm going to tell you, oh no, drink the cucumber milk diet. It doesn't work like that. There's like a lot of things you have to do. And then there's a lot of bad luck that can happen too. So I did a huge rant here, but the answer is you have to put in the work. If you don't want any trouble, first thing you want to do is segment your network, and that takes a lot of thinking. Then you want to be able to make sure you manage all of your systems. Don't get me started on passwords, which is a huge mistake. Again, passwords are just a way that companies put liability on you to access their servers. It should never happen like that. We have better technologies than that. And but yes, don't reuse passwords, use complicated passwords. I would never use a third-party password manager because they're all getting hacked. Look, what is it like out of the last 5 years, 90% of all the major attacks happened through a third party, So I mean, don't put your trust in the vendors then. And that's what you're learning. But again, the vendors are the ones putting out the messages, so people don't hear that.
And how does that relate to like the AWS? If I'm a corporation, I've moved my compute to the cloud. Do I not have to worry about cybersecurity anymore, or do I have to worry even more, or what's the difference there?
So
you have 1 minute.
It's almost like those who can't do teach. It's like those who can't do cloud. And I think that's fine. Look, if you can't do something, if you can't put the effort into keeping it safe, then you have to host it somewhere that maybe gives you a better chance to do it. However, you're opening yourself up to another ecosystem, other problems. But you have to be aware of that. You have to know that you are now in the AWS ecosystem. They're going to be able to access your stuff if they have a rogue actor, if they have problems, and they do have problems. They do have people who snoop. I mean, there's been lawsuits. There's been people who capture the Alexa device information and pass it around. I mean, there's a lot of issues, so you can, maybe AWS is better than doing it yourself if you have no idea what you're doing, but there's other hosting providers that are not big cloud that could probably do better for you. I mean, for years before cloud, we used ISPs and hosting providers that got really good at holding and helping you manage your data. And then all of a sudden cloud came with their really crappy buckets. And really cloud would be great if I knew that I can spin up my own server there and harden my own server. That's what it's good for, not protecting my hosting stuff. Remember, cloud makes most of their money off CPU cycles. So whatever they're going to sell you is going to be things that use more CPU cycles, which is why they love AI, right? So they're like, oh, take all your data and then we process it, because they're making more money then if you do that. Same thing with their security. It causes more bandwidth, more latency, more money for them. Yeah. So, I mean, there's extra CPU cycles. Go back to a hosting provider. There's a lot of them and they're good and they know what they're doing, unless you need to build your own servers, then go to cloud.
Jody had a quite interesting point a little earlier that went back. So it's about biometrics services. So how well does that work? Does it make us more vulnerable or does it help us?
Okay, so everybody who does biometrics, they have their own schema on how they take the information. So what information are they getting from the biometric? What are they measuring? Now, there's some standards to it because it's been around a while. So you can pretty much figure that the patterns are almost the same. I think Apple did really well in getting complicated ways of what they measure, what points of the face, whether somebody's blinking, if there's flushing, if it's for real. Again, these things have been hacked too, but so with biometrics, they're basically taking all these data points and they're basically turning it into a hash or a token. Yeah, something that is an anonymous identification number or string that matches to its unique identifying means, which means that if your biometrics info gets stolen from Apple, people can use it possibly to unlock your Apple devices, should they know how to use it properly. But they wouldn't be able to use it across all biometric devices, right? So because everyone is going to be slightly different, most likely. Again, take that with a grain of salt because people are really innovative at screwing over other people. So that could change. I mean, and that's the thing is that risk is funny that way because you have two things. You have your attack surface, which is what about you is attackable. And then you have risk. And risk is, could it happen? Yeah. And if you want to look at it that way, you could say, when I make something harder to do I make it more secure or I just shrink the pool of possible attackers? And what you're really doing is just shrinking that pool until somebody makes a tool. And then once they make a tool and it goes out there, you make that pool bigger and bigger and bigger, which means risk is never something you can actually nail down as a number at any given moment of time ever, because you don't know when that tool is being made or when people learn that skill. But your attack surface is always the same. And those are things that you can close up. I have open ports. I have services running, this, that. These are things I can fix. I can put controls on. Yeah. But your risk, you can't. Your risk is, and so we try to get people to look at their attack surface rather than their risk, because the risk is really just testing the wind in the sky. It's so inaccurate. It's insane. And yet people are holding on to it for dear life because their entire careers are built around this thing. So of course, they hang on to it with both hands and say, no, risk is really important. We need to keep talking risk. But if you start thinking about all the industries that use risk effectively, like really effectively, and you have to say, do they have problems? And we're looking at gambling and insurance, and we know they have problems, and they are really good at risk.
Yeah, that's their business. Well, Pete, I can't thank you enough for your time. This has been a fantastic session, but that's all the time we have today. And you just narrowly survived the hot seat. You were outgunned perhaps, but so if you other audience members think you have what it takes to be in the hot seat, let us know. We'd love to have you on the show. That's your In the Hot Seat episode for today. Thank you so much for being with us. I'm Pete Smith.
And I'm Thomas Wieberneit, and tune in next time for different faces, different topics, and different perspectives, as we may be put into the hot seat ourselves.
Thank you.